You're watching Sports Tonight Live. Good afternoon, and I'm delighted to welcome into the studio with me today, Adrian Bevington, Managing Director of Club England. Bevo, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Delighted to be here, Mike.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, it's great to be able to sit down and chew the fat with you over Matters Football Association, now, in the future, and forevermore. One particular project, which of course you're very proud of, and it's coming to a head now, is St George's. Perhaps you can tell me all about that.
Yeah, St George's Park at Burton, National Football Centre, will be open later this year. Fantastic facility, 12 pitches. It's going to be the first football facility in this country, medical centre, with a FIFA kite standard mark. It's where all the England teams will train for the first time in our history. It's where all the coaches and managers will go to learn. It will be our University of Football. It's where the referees will go to be coached. It's where the League Managers Association offices will be based.
Yep.
It is going to be the real heartbeat of our nation for the future.
Yeah.
And this is where we're going to build our Club England infrastructure, which hopefully will achieve success long term.
Yeah, OK. Is it this a Clairefontaine then? Is it this is a system built on the models in Europe, which have given European teams so much success?
No, it's very different to many of the models. It's definitely not Clairefontaine. It's not a youth academy. The clubs in this country are responsible for developing the players from the age of 8 upwards.
Yeah.
That will continue, and they're doing a very good job of it. We're now seeing more better technical players than we've seen ever before.
Yeah.
Our development teams are playing very well. It's where the young England teams will go to be based.
Yeah.
It's where the England senior team, the England women's team and all the women's teams will go to be based. It's where people will go to have rehabilitation for their medical injuries.
Yeah.
But it will not be a football academy in the same way that we had Lilleshall 20 years ago, or that we have seen countries like France have with the likes of Clairefontaine.
OK. You're hoping that we'll develop a structure of continuous improvement in the game, and so that youngsters, by the time they get to the brink of representing England, will have played in representative teams throughout their growing up career, their growing up experience in football, and they will mingle at the age of perhaps as young as 14 or 15 with very senior players.
That's the plan. We're expecting to see, the teams under 16s, under 17s who've got youngsters in there who are 15 years old. They'll be based there ahead of games. That they'll be training on the same pitches as the senior team, as the under 21 team. And what greater aspiration and inspiration for a young player to have the England senior players, your Steven Gerrards, your Wayne Rooneys, Scott Parkers, wandering around the corridors to talk to the young players and explain to them with the senior manager, how important it is to be part of the England structure, how great it is, preparing them. We will have an induction for them when they first start playing for England.
Yeah.
It's where we'll build the whole collective, the spirit. If you play the development tournaments, the World Youth Cup, the under-21s, the under-20s, under-17 UEFA tournaments, you get a great deal more tournament experience that the likes of the Spanish players with Casillas, with Fabregas, with Xavi, with Iniesta, they've got 45 caps plus playing for Spain. So that when they go and play in a major tournament, World and European Championships at senior level, the experience they've got, historically, England haven't had that level of experience. We're starting to see it now. We've got a great record in recent years against Spain, playing good football. We beat them in the under-17 UEFA Championships 2 years ago. We recently beat them at under-16s in Spain, 1-0 in Madrid, and we're performing a lot better. This is the early pathway for us now.
I see, fine, because of course they do say that the Spanish team at the moment is par excellence, but the next Spanish team is already waiting in the background to slide in, and you're hoping to develop that sort of system.
If you speak to a lot of the technical directors around Europe of the other national associations, they will explain to you that England are actually doing a lot of things right now, and that we are performing and competing very well. Not competing in a way that we stick in a long ball in and trying to challenge and work hard with all of our natural attributes of hard work and energy and attitude, but more a case combining that. We're not going to try and copy Spain. We're not copying Germany. This is the English style, but hopefully, we're seeing players now retain the ball a lot better. Trevor Brookings' philosophy of playing the ball out through the thirds, not do a set tactical system. Doesn't mean it's 4-4-2 or 4-3-3, but the keeper plays it out. It goes to the defence. It moves around the pitch. At some time, you will go long occasionally, but the retention of the ball, the technical ability of the players, that's proving successful for us. We're getting results at the youngest age groups. We've now got to transfer that as these guys come through, and the ones who are currently 11, 12, 13, in the clubs, bring them through as well.
Great, fine. Now, before we do all that, of course, we've got to find ourselves an England manager. Now, this is, I would imagine, top of your agenda at the moment, or certainly very near to the top of the agenda. Where exactly are we? Because at the moment, the appointment of the England manager is being debated through media reports, really. Can we have a definitive statement as to where we actually are?
Look, we said very clearly the day after Fabio Capello's departure that we would take our time with this. We fully understand the public and the media craving information on it. It's a hugely important job that means a tremendous amount to everyone in the country. What we're very conscious of is that we've got a European Championships, clearly, that the season ends May the 13th. We've said recently that we'll make an appointment by the back end of the season. Yeah. By the back end of the season doesn't necessarily mean May the 13th. It could be before then, the latter stages of the season. Right.
Does that mean you're close to appointing a manager then?
What I'm saying is at the moment we haven't actually spoken to any individual manager, we haven't approached any individual club, and we haven't approached any individual agent. So at this moment in time, only 4 people, David Bernstein, the FA chairman, with Alex Horn, Sir Trevor Brooking and myself, are working on this project. We will report back to the main board of the FA with a recommendation and of who we want to appoint and how we want to appoint them. We're very conscious of the time of the season. This is a really important time for all clubs. And then all the managers generally are in work at the moment. We have ideas that we're working towards, but at this moment we're doing it in a very confidential way, while ensuring that all the plans for the European Championships are in place. The base camp's in order. All the travel and accommodation is sorted. The preparation before we go to the tournament is all in place. We have vastly experienced people who've working on studying the teams that we're going to play in the group phase.
The thing that interests me, Adrian, is that the squad of 30 has to be announced a long time before the tournament starts, and you may not have a manager in place then. So who announces the squad of 30, which might then be pared down by another man?
Stuart Pearce is the person who we have publicly said will be our lead on England. He took the team against Holland, and we felt that Stuart conducted himself very, very well around that time. He's got a lot of international experience, both as a player and as the under-21 manager and as the Olympics manager, so he's got a lot of work on. We are, as I say, we are working towards having an appointment made before the end of the season.
Sure. And look, you've been as good as you can about this, because obviously you've got to do this, with the very, very diplomatic way. You don't want to be. Spurs fans already think that the FA are responsible for their lack of form because Harry Redknapp is being upset about the speculation surrounding him, although you've said nobody's been approached. Nevertheless, you have made the statement in the past, I think yourself, that you would prefer to have an English manager. And if that's the case, there are really not a lot of candidates who are out there.
I certainly was quoted saying that was a preference a couple of years ago, but more importantly, the FA chairman, David Bernstein, has made it very clear that while you would always have the aspiration and preference of having an English manager, we have to make sure that we go out and get the right man for the job. And so we're not at this moment ruling ourselves out of anyone who's a candidate. So we will decide who we feel is the right man for this. We definitely have not, as a group, spoken publicly or privately to any other individuals about any potential candidates. So any of the speculation around any individual has not come from the 4 people who are working on this, and we've been very, very committed to that. Who the person that we go for in the end is still to be determined. When we do, obviously there'll be a huge amount of publicity around that, and we'll do so before the back end of the season.
But it could be an overseas coach again.
What I'm not wanting to do here, Mike, and you can understand why, is try and lead you or the public down a particular route. I don't want to talk about the type of candidate that we're going to go for, whether that be English, British, international.
Fine. Great. Now, of course, FA, the thing synonymous with the FA to me is the FA Cup final, right? We're moving into the later stages of the competition now. Of course, I'm hoping that my team are going to be around for a long, long time. And I have to ask you this. I think that the FA Cup final has got its own day again this year. I think it's the week before the final tranche of Premier League games. To me, that is a great victory. I love the FA Cup final. I want it to have its own day. I want to salute you for getting that day back.
Well, I think most people would like to see the FA Cup final on its own individual day towards the end of the season. There's a lot of history associated with it. We're all very proud. The FA Cup final, we believe, to be the finest domestic cup competition, certainly with the heritage that it has in world football. And it's a unique showpiece. My understanding is that it is going to be on an individual day with no other fixtures.
Yeah.
I think the first weekend in May.
Yes.
The Premier League will probably play the following day.
Yes.
And then the following weekend for the final round of fixtures, if I stand to be corrected on that, but that's my understanding of it.
No, it is the 13th, I think, isn't it?
And we really believe that we'll have a great final this year.
Yeah.
The competition is bubbling away nicely.
Yeah.
And it should be great to have that Saturday in May where everyone's focused on the FA Cup final one day.
Absolutely. Have the FA or yourself any thoughts on applying to the powers that be in football to ask whether the winner of the FA Cup could possibly take a place in the Champions League?
No, we haven't done so. The Champions League, as we understand it, is the competition where it goes to league placings.
Yeah.
Obviously, the FA Cup winner has historically gone into the Cup Winners' Cup and then into the UEFA Cup and Europa League.
Yes.
I'm not aware of any discussions with FIFA or UEFA to suggest otherwise from that. What we have to do domestically is to make sure that we support the FA Cup wherever we can, and we have to treasure it. We have to ensure that we protect it the best we can. There have been some fantastic fixtures in recent years. The FA Cup also has a really important role to play in the revenue generation for the organisation. We have a sponsorship deal with Budweiser.
Yep.
We invest as we generate as an organisation over £300 million a year. Our role in the game is to raise as much money as possible to reinvest that across all areas of the game. We reinvest over £100 million back into football every year, and there are not too many other national sporting governing bodies that can do that.
Sure.
And the FA Cup is a great way of us reinvesting some of that money. And if you're a club outside of the elite band, the money that you get from the FA Cup can be hugely important. And there's been a report by Deloitte and Touche that have actually shown how important financially the FA Cup prize money is to clubs.
Yes.
Because also when you get a TV appearance as well, even if it's highlights, you can get a fee which also goes into the coffers from the FA.
When I worked in radio, if we went to a non-league club and just did the commentary on them, they'd get a couple of grand and they were made up. I mean, it really is a huge lifeline for a lot of the clubs. And that 100 million you're talking about goes back. I mean, this goes to places like the West Riding FA, doesn't it?
County FAs receive money. The Football Foundation, which is a tremendously important organisation, which is a tripart organisation between ourselves, the Premier League, and the government. And we all three of us invest significant millions into that every year. And a lot of the facilities, you drive up and down around the country, inner city areas, and you see the Football Foundation sign, often with the badges of the other organisations. And those facilities are there for the communities to play on. And that's funded from money that we generate as the FA with our other organisations.
Fabulous. You've got many responsibilities in your role at the FA. You're, of course, Club England MD. It's a bit of a mouthful, that, but I know exactly.
I don't disagree.
I do love your office, though, I have to say. Every time I walk down Wembley Way, I think, wow, imagine having this view from that angle. One of the responsibilities you have, of course, is the permanent problem of racism and, more recently, homophobia in football. You've got huge amounts of, I was going to say people, but it's not necessarily people, but huge amounts of commitment to try and tackle both of these problems. And every time we think we're getting there, then we get a situation which takes us back a bit. I tell you what we'll do. Why don't we have a think about that one, have a chat on it, and we'll be back in just a second or two to discuss it. Welcome back. Of course, you're watching Sport Tonight Live. Delighted to have you with us. Even more delighted to say my guest in the studio today, Adrian Bevington, MD, of course, of Club England. Bevo, welcome again to the show. Thanks for being with us. Now, we just touched on the two issues which are very close to your heart, racism, homophobia within the game. Racism first. I was delighted to see that quite recently an issue that arose at Anfield, an allegation of a young footballer being distressed about racist comments made from the crowd, was never taken up because hopefully somebody made a mistake in what they heard. Nevertheless, it shows that the vigilance is always there, isn't it, for these sort of things when they're happening?
I think you can separate the two areas out, but ultimately it's all discrimination. And as a national sporting governing body, we've got a huge responsibility to have a zero tolerance approach to any form of discrimination. And we worked for many decades in football with the Kick It Out group. The FA is a founding and funding partner of Kick It Out. And there's a tremendous commitment across the game to do all that we can to ensure that racism has no place in football. And I think anyone who's been around would acknowledge that there have been significant strides from the scenes that we used to often see in the 70s and 80s that were, quite intolerable. Now, that doesn't mean that it's all gone away, and it's something that we have to continue working very hard to eradicate, educate, but likewise, in addition to racism, there are other areas of discrimination, and of course homophobia is another one that has caught the headlines in recent times. And it's really important that football provides an environment that is safe and secure for anybody of any sexual orientation to feel comfortable playing in the sport, actually openly expressing and declaring what their sexual orientation is, if they want to come out and talk about that. We as the FA have to be as welcoming and as supportive to anyone as possible to provide every level of support that they need, because we just cannot have an environment in the game where people are afraid to express themselves. And I can assure you, there's been a lot of work gone on within our equality department, with other organisations, where if a footballer was to want to openly express their sexuality and come out, we would provide
100% backing,
100% support, and likewise we have an action plan in place that we would instantly activate on to provide all the support and levels that they would need.
Oh, I see. So if somebody came out, if a footballer came out for the first time and declared he was openly homosexual, you've already got in place a plan to give him maximum support?
We have indeed, yes. We have an equality department that works in the FA.
Right.
We work very closely with the PFA on this as well.
Yeah.
And there was a recent conference at Wembley in which many people spoke at and stressed how important it is, and there's been a lot of work going on in this area to ensure that we will have the support mechanisms in place.
What does that mechanism include? I mean, so you would now urge any homosexual footballer in this country, come forward and declare yourself if you wish, and you don't want to be living a lie anymore.
I think rather than express it that way, Mike, I think what I would say is that if anyone, however they particularly feel at a given time, want to publicly express any position on this, that we as a national association, we will be available to them.
Right.
We'll provide any support mechanisms that are required, and obviously we're working in conjunction with the PFA in this as well.
Right.
And more importantly, moving forward from that, however these players would need help or support, we will do that. Additionally, around the terraces and the stands at stadiums, separate arm of that, we cannot and will not accept that any homophobic or discriminatory abuse in this area is acceptable.
Like that.
It cannot be accepted.
Can't be. It's not acceptable in any other
you couldn't walk down the street and get away with saying that.
No.
So in football, why would it be acceptable?
Total zero tolerance on that. Getting back to the racism for a minute, were you disappointed with Liverpool's response to your very strong disciplinary action against their player Suarez?
I think we've reached a situation in time now where the Suarez case has been dealt with. I think every organisation has issued statements and expressed opinions. Thankfully, that matter is now being closed. As I say, every organisation has issued formal statements. I don't think it's right for me to start going back over all that old ground now. From our position, we move forward. Suspensions have been served. Statements have been made. Our position generically towards racism is very clear, and all abuse, and that's the most important pathway for us to follow.
Are you frustrated that the John Terry situation will not be resolved for a good long time to come now?
Well, as you can understand, that's not an area that I really want to begin discussing, purely because there is a live case going on there.
I totally agree. I'm just saying.
So from my point of view, I'm not going to express any opinion either way on that, Mike, because it's just not appropriate for me to do so.
Okay, that's fine. About ourselves as a football association, and we are the football association, but you've told me in the past that you actually introduce yourselves as the English Football Association representative. How are relationships with the world? And I only ask because quite recently, Sir Dave Richards, who I know quite well and can speak his mind occasionally, bluff Yorkshireman, I'm not sure that he whatever he was expressing went down very well with some of our colleagues abroad.
What I do know is that we've worked particularly hard since the World Cup bid failed for the 2018 bid, and You know, in our chairman, David Bernstein, he has worked very hard with UEFA in particular, with Michel Platini. And I know that he's on very good working terms with him.
Yep.
Alex Horn, our General Secretary,
yes,
is on some of the senior committees within UEFA. And, you know, that UEFA is an organisation that we've really gone to great lengths to work with. Likewise, there was the recent International Football Association board meeting. That's an easy thing to say. That we hosted that in Surrey recently, and Sepp Blatter was across there, and other FIFA members. And again, David Bernstein, as the FA chairman, reached out to these people, and we believe that we have put a lot of work in building relationships. It doesn't mean that we won't defend our position and best represent England, but likewise we want to be a real player within the international family. Obviously on the events over the past couple of days, statements have been made, apologies have been issued. I don't think I need to add anything further than that on that particular subject, but certainly we have a commitment as an organisation to play an active role and strengthen our position at the most important tables in world football, so that England can have a voice and an active role.
Yeah, sure, great. In fact, the 150th anniversary of the Football Association's coming up, isn't it? 1863, I remember very well indeed.
Were you there?
That's a harsh thing to say, isn't it? I wasn't there. But I always, I've got this theory that we should by now be heightening the crossbar and widening the goals, because I always say that when the first set of rules were drawn up in 1863, the average size of a man was 5'4". It's now 5'10". So I always remember 1863. So it's any thoughts on that one, by the way?
Interesting thought to follow, Mike. No, we'll stick with what we are.
Yeah. Okay. No, I was going to say, so 150th anniversary coming up, and you've got a package of goodies in store.
We've got a lot of work going on next year. We'll be the first national association to be 150. I can assure fans that we will have a really fantastic fixture programme at Wembley, where we'll play some very, very exciting international matches. There'll be a lot of work going on around the country, where we will have roadshow activity, question time, opportunities for fans to come and quiz some of the senior people at the FA. A number of events that I can't go into any great detail with now, but that will be historical landmark events that will run throughout the course of the year. We'll roll those out towards the end of this year, so people are aware of what's happening. But yeah, we're really looking forward to it. It's a special occasion for the organisation, and hopefully something that the fans up and down the country can enjoy.
Sure, absolutely. We are in the later stages, of course, of the Champions League, and it's amazing that this year we were down to one club, Chelsea, whereas in previous years we had like 3 teams in the semi-finals. Have you got any thoughts as to why our dominance, absolute dominance of Champions League football in Europe seems to have waned a little?
Well, I think, you know, obviously this year we only have the one team, and that is not where we've been in recent years, but I don't think we should necessarily be overly concerned at this particular moment. I mean, obviously Manchester United reached the final last year, and Liverpool, Manchester United have been at the final a couple of times recently and won it against Chelsea recently. Liverpool have won it. We've got a very strong record in the recent decade. I think we obviously would hope to see our teams progress a little further, but Arsenal were very close to going through. And so in reality, Mike, we were one goal away from having 2 teams in the quarter-finals, which most countries would be absolutely delighted with.
Sure, absolutely. But nevertheless, the more consistent our record is, the more times we get 4 teams in consecutive years. It's great for English football.
It is important that teams progress for the coefficient, so that we can keep that 4th place. But at this moment in time, while we've only got one team through, it's still
perhaps it's one of those seasons.
It's one of those seasons where we,
Sure. And just finally, Adrian, I do want to thank you for your time today. I know busy a man you are. The question I always get asked is, wouldn't you prefer the semi-finals to be at Hillsborough, at Aston Villa? You must have been asked this a million times. I always defend you and say, look, if you wanted a stadium like Wembley, the biggest and best football stadium in the world, we had to make an occasional sacrifice, and that is to play the semi-finals there. But is there any way, any hope for those fans who want to go back to the old tradition of moving away from Wembley for the semi-finals?
It's part of the business plan now. Let's be frank about it. Wembley is a fantastic stadium. Cost a lot of money to build. It will be profitable very soon, and we'll own it in the not too distant future.
Great.
And when we own it and are profitable, clearly that's benefiting the whole game with the reinvestment. But part of the business plan is for the semi-finals to be at Wembley. And while I do understand the fans' debate of the neutral venue, let's not also forget that when teams get to semi-finals, there used to be a lot of frustration and angst towards the FA, the venues that were selected, saying that the capacity wasn't big enough.
Yes.
And even in the biggest grounds, you couldn't necessarily get the amount of tickets that you would like.
Sure.
At least with Wembley, pretty much every fan who wants to go to a semi-final can go to a semi-final.
Yeah, sure.
So, look, there are pros and cons that we understand, but we're very proud of Wembley. We think it's a fantastic stadium, one of the best in the world, but to service Wembley, we have to take our big fixtures there.
Yeah, well, also I would say as well, it means 4 teams get a day out rather than 2, because only 2 teams go through from the semi-finals, and it's a great thing to get to Wembley. It's also great to come to the capital, make a day out of it.
Well, I'll give you an example of Barnsley a
occasion.
few years ago. Barnsley got to Wembley a few years ago for the semi-final of the Cup. They never quite made it to the final.
Yeah.
I bet their fans had a great experience.
I bet they did. Adrian, I want to thank you very much indeed. It's
Pleasure.
been great to have you with us. Adrian Bevington, of course, MD of Club England, has been with me. I'm the Portmeister. We had a fantastic chat. Make sure you stick with Sports Night Live. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. Adrian, thank you so much.
Thanks, mate. Women's team and all the women's teams will go to be based. It's where people will go to have rehabilitation for their medical injuries, but it will not be a football academy in the same way that we had Lilleshall 20 years ago, or that we have seen countries like France have with the likes of Clairefontaine.
OK, you're hoping that we'll develop a structure of continuous improvement in the game, and so that youngsters, by the time they get to the brink of representing England, will have played in representative teams throughout their growing up career, their growing up experience in football, and they will mingle at the age of perhaps as young as 14 or 15 with very senior players.
That's the England infrastructure, which hopefully will achieve success long term.
Yeah, OK. Is it this a Clairefontaine then? Is it this is a system built on the models in Europe, which have given European teams so much success?
No, it's very different to many of the models. It's definitely not Clairefontaine. It's not a youth academy. The clubs in this country are responsible for developing the players from the age of 8 upwards.
Yeah.
That will continue, and they're doing a very good job of it. We're now seeing more better technical players than we've seen ever before.
Yeah.
Our development teams are playing very well. It's where the young England teams will go to be based.
Yeah.
It's where the England senior team, the England...
Perhaps you can tell me all about that.
Yeah, St George's Park at Burton, National Football Centre, will be open later this year. Fantastic facility, 12 pitches. It's going to be the first football facility in this country, medical centre, with a FIFA kite standard mark. It's where all the England teams will train for the first time in our history. It's where all the coaches and managers will go to learn. It will be our University of Football. It's where the referees will go to be coached. It's where the League Managers Association offices will be based.
Yep.
It is going to be the real heartbeat of our nation for the future.
Yeah.
And this is where we're going to build our club. The plan, we're expecting to see, you know, the teams under 16s, under 17s who've got youngsters in there who are 15 years old. They'll be based there ahead of games. That they'll be training on the same pitches as the senior team, as the under 21 team. And what greater aspiration and inspiration for a young player to have the England senior players, your Steven Gerrards, your Wayne Rooneys, Scott Parkers, wandering around the corridors to talk to the young players and explain to them with the senior manager, you know, how important it is to be part of the England structure, how great it is, preparing them.
You're watching Sports Tonight Live. Good afternoon, and I'm delighted to welcome into the studio with me today, Adrian Bevington, Managing Director of Club England. Bevo, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Delighted to be here, Mike.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, it's great to be able to sit down and chew the fat with you over Matters Football Association, now, in the future, and forevermore. One particular project, which of course you're very proud of, and it's coming to a head now, is St George.